Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the WoAS podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Daisy Jones and the Six. So, for everyone watching, I brought up to Jeremy for our next episode or one of our episodes. Hey, let's talk about Daisy Jones and the Six because, yes, it's a very popular show on Amazon and based on a popular novel. But what I connected with about that series was the music first and foremost. It's a good show, it's not perfect. It's got its flaws and certain things that could have been done better. But I think what I would anchor my excitement on is the fact that a collection of people wrote an album that I think not only stands on its own, but captures a lot about a time and a context and a story that is believable, just in the context of the music. And it's very well done in as much as what it's sort of trying to replicate, and it does it in a very not pandering, non-tacky way, maybe similar to the Waiting on a Song album.
Yeah, it's got a
So
vintage vibe without it being too much. And it's not
yeah,
ripping off things. It's kind of an homage to a lot of these Fleetwood Mac songs, and some of those other people that are around the same time. I would throw Jackson Browne in. I'm sure we'll go over this, but Jackson Browne had a hand in one of the songs, and it
yeah,
was one of those things that, as a Jackson Browne fan, you could kind of spot as you're going throughout the show without even knowing he was involved.
yeah. No, that's a great point. And I didn't. I'd be interested to see. We're going to attempt to play some stuff during the episode. I'd be interested to see which song, you get that vibe from.
Yeah.
But
There's some like certain phrasing things that Jackson Browne does that are
okay,
very specific to him.
yeah. And it's interesting because as we were looking on the wiki about the album, we don't see any sort of writing credits with his name on it, but he is
Mm-hmm.
listed as one of the producers. So, maybe in the case of that song, if what you're implying is in fact going on, maybe he was kind of taking a producer sort of angle where he's like, hey, try it this way, and then
Yeah.
it made its way into the song. Now,
Yep.
what I think for a little background, so if you've seen the show or if you haven't,
Go watch it.
yeah, go watch it. Or if you don't have the
Amazing
time to do
show.
that and you're not interested in the show, but you are intrigued, now that we've mentioned this about the music, go listen to the album Aurora by Daisy Jones and the Six on Spotify or any major streaming platform. You won't be disappointed. Probably regardless of whatever whatever era of, let's say, like rock you're into, you'll
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. But for a little background beyond the fact that there's a show and an album, this is a very deliberate effort, I think, by I guess Amazon Studios and the producer, that the showrunner, let's say, which I think is Taylor Jenkins Reid is his name, to put together something that would stand up to the legendary status of, let's say, like the story, the novel primarily, right, that begat this show. And I think they achieved that. He enlisted, as I think the primary writing force, Blake Mills, which Jeremy and I have just kind of started to look into a bit and listen to, and he's very interesting. And I think we're going to do a separate episode on him as well. But I don't know, how would you describe Blake Mills?
I
That
mean,
from what you've heard so far, because I have to remember what
yeah,
I
so I
recall
went
of his
back
songs.
and was reading some about him before I went into the music. And
Okay.
I guess he came up in like the early 2010s,
Mm-hmm.
and was a really good session guitar player, touring musician kind of guy. Put
Okay.
out his own solo album that was a big hit
Mm-hmm.
in Nashville,
Okay.
amongst like other Nashville session people. They were
Ah.
really impressed by it.
Okay.
And I listened to it, and it's got some really interesting kind of ideas on it. It's definitely not pop radio friendly or even country
Yeah.
radio friendly or anything like that.
Right. But he seems to have acumen in that
Oh yeah.
country field. Nashville, that revelation that you just brought to the table here, makes sense because that speaks to sort of like the country vocabulary, which there is that in the songs. Like there's arguably moments in the vocal harmonies that are very country. We'll see if we can
Mm.
kind of like tag those down on the spot when we play some songs.
Yeah.
But the musicianship thing too, nowadays Nashville is not just country, so you have any number of like really proficient musicians running through that city and that
Mm-hmm.
scene,
Oh yeah.
right?
Best
And
musicians in the country for sure, probably the
yeah,
world.
right. And so he probably, has absorbed all that. I mean, look, even when you're talking about a country band, I remember my high school jazz instructor saying this to me years ago. He was like, "Hey, if you want to really like hone your skills as a guitar player, join a country band because like they're the most sought after and technically proficient guitar players out there, and the kinds of things they have to do require like a wide palette of skills and whatnot." So I think Blake Mills probably falls into that category now that you're
Mm-hmm.
giving me this background. And I'll add that maybe we'll play a song of his, but when I probably similarly listen to the top X whatever
Yeah.
tracks of his, I noticed that like you were saying, it doesn't really fall into any kind of one category.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned before we started shooting, like maybe I'd liken him to a Vance Joy or a Ben Howard as far as like his standalone writing skill, where they're just like good songs
Yeah.
and they work with just like a guitar, but then he'll like do these weird ass
Mm-hmm.
solos that are like using scales you wouldn't normally use in a song like that, or any song for that matter,
Yeah.
almost going into like, I don't know, Radiohead territory, maybe. Really, really strange. Like you
Right.
just hear this very like not traditional song, but straightforward song with this weird solo that you would never think to put on. That's cool.
Right.
And that's something that I wouldn't even say it's something a session player would do. It's something that someone who's just a really learned, skilled
Yeah.
musician would do. So
Yeah. And I think he really got more popular whenever he started producing for other people.
mhm.
So he's done a bunch
Okay.
of production and worked on a bunch of big stuff. And I think that's what you're also hearing in his own solo stuff
Right.
is somebody that not only is really proficient in music, but also music production, which are two completely different skills.
Okay, well, and then to continue just sort of the personnel aspect of this, and then speak to what you just said. He's one of the producers, and he's the primary writer,
Hmm.
and he then therefore knows how to make something sound like other things he's played on, or maybe even other periods of time, right?
Yep.
And capturing that,
Yep.
as well as like having enough of a vocabulary to maybe even pivot from what he normally writes into
Hmm.
like, oh, if Fleetwood Mac was around now and they were like writing something, if we need a Fleetwood Mac-esque sound, but
Yeah.
not
From the
actually be
70s.
Fleetwood Mac, like here's how I would approach that. And he nails it. It's not derivative in any way, as you were
Hmm.
saying before.
It's got little like sprinkles of ideas from other things. There's
Hmm.
specific like kick drum sounds or guitar sounds
Yes.
or maybe a tiny little vocal harmony
Yes.
that they're doing that's reminiscent of Fleetwood Mac, but it's just
Right.
that one little element, and then the rest of the song is much more original.
Yeah. And I probably, I was saying this to Jeremy before. I think it's probably the track "Regret Me." We'll play it,
Mhm.
where I would argue that anything they do that's Fleetwood Mac is all based off of Rhiannon. But that's
Uh-huh.
awesome because it's like, that's the most Fleetwood Mac song probably that they've
It
ever done,
probably is. Yeah.
right? So to just like pull a couple like guitar tone qualities and even maybe like rhythmic qualities of what Lindsey Buckingham would do, and then
Yeah.
throw that into 1 to 2 to 3 songs in this album. It's killer. And forgive me to the actress who I'm going to butcher your name, but Riley Coe, let's say Riley Key.
Co?
Let's
Like
just say Coe.
dough?
I'm so sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but anyway, Riley also sounds like Stevie Nicks in certain parts of these songs,
Right.
for sure deliberately, for sure encouraged by the producers.
Hmm.
And that's a feat unto itself. Like, how do you do that? I mean, she was a powerhouse, and still is, but I mean, was a powerhouse in the
Yeah.
70s, from a vocal point of view, and to be able to replicate that is killer. But then on top of that, this woman has got a killer vocal range and
Hmm.
understanding of harmony, which leads me to another point, which is that here's an album for those of you who are listening and watching, that two actors that are in the show
Hmm.
sing on everything. It is them. It's their voices. They're very much not treated. Like, there's really, if there's any auto tune going on, it's masterfully done. But
Yeah. I think maybe a little bit on a couple places, but it's very tasteful.
And I don't think they had to use a lot of it, but even still, they wouldn't be able to pull off the harmonies that they do if they weren't good singers. So Sam Claflin, this English actor, he's great as Billy Dunn, who's the like leads the front man of the band, and then she comes in as the sort of like the other front man or front woman.
And you can't tell the guy's faking an American accent.
Yeah, so there's that too. So he's already like doing this believable American persona and accent, and Californian at that, but not like, hey, brah, it's not like exaggerated. And Riley Coe, that's probably like her normal speaking voice or whatever. But the two of them are great on camera, and they have good chemistry, all that stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, here's the takeaway. These people cranked out an amazing album, and it does not matter that it's like the companion to a decent show or a great show or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I mean, they just like knocked out of the park. So what I'm excited about and why I wanted to do this is because I like the fact, as a fan of music, I like nostalgia, but I like it when it's, if you're going to do something deliberate, still make it your own. Let's just say that. And here is just, if we're just looking at it as an album that this group of people put together, that's kind of perfect. There's maybe like 3 or 4 songs they're good songs, but they're like, they don't stand up to maybe the other like killer 5 songs. Doesn't matter though.
That's an album.
Yeah, right. That's an album.
That's just how many times have you work?
Yeah, how many times have you come to that realization? You're like, oh shit, everything isn't awesome unless it's like Alice in Chains Dirt or whatever. So to pull that off is impressive, but it just makes for a satisfying listen. And so we wanted to kind of share this with the world. And I think Jeramy's mostly on board with, a similar sentiment about the song. So
yeah, the songs are good.
Yeah. So let's do this. We'll start with the opening track, and we'll share as much as is necessary. I have points about some of the songs where I want to talk about how they transition into a chorus and what I think some of the beauty of the writing is. Remind me to talk about Honeycomb, because I want to bring up another writer that will, if you stick around, you'll find out who else was involved in writing these songs.
Don't Google it.
Yeah. Right there.
Mike's going to tell you.
Yeah, don't Google it. Okay. You hear that? Oh yeah. Okay. Bring this down. So what I love about this is just this. I like how it's just got this driving beat. I don't know what BPM it is, but it's fast enough to get your blood pumping.
Yeah.
And they had that really rattly, like, I don't know. I guess it's like, I don't know if it's an organ sound or they're doing something weird to the bass. Very not characteristic of that time.
Right.
Right. But the vocal character is.
Yeah.
And here's another thing too. If we're talking from a production note, the vocals are laid back. They're not way like back. Popped up front like they would normally be, right? So for anyone who doesn't sort of think of this music from this production point of view, nowadays, in any genre of music, honestly, for that matter, the vocals are always like up front and they're center stage. Okay, they're like, they treat those things to make them pop, and then everything else. I don't mean like pop music, but like boop, and everything else will be present and clear and mixed properly, but the vocal is kind of like punched out and everything else is serving that. This is not the case. You listen to older stuff and you go back. Now that I said that, if you never thought about that before, you'll hear the vocals kind of like dip back. Maybe they're even competing with the instrumentation. And I don't know if
that's how old music used to sound. I definitely picked up on that as one of the things to talk
about. A characteristic.
And then you made the playlist for me where there's also the Fleetwood Mac songs on it.
Yeah.
And the vocals aren't even as far back as the real Fleetwood Mac songs are, which is
interesting. Okay. Yeah,
they're
very
even
interesting.
More buried.
Right. So there you go. Okay. So there's that. So driving beat, using this interesting sort of character that's not exactly characteristic of, let's say, like the Fleetwood Mac thing. Maybe it would be used in some sort of more atypical rock band of that era. But anyway, it works. I like it. And that's like, there you go. Like that's a standalone song and a choice that was made that works and doesn't take away from like what this album's trying to sound like from like the point of view of when it's supposed to be. Anyway, and the chorus is cool and everything, but that what you just heard is kind of the meat and potatoes, I think, of what makes this song a good opener, and it's the title track of the album. So Any additional thoughts on Aurora for starters?
I mean, I would like to learn more. I don't know if this is on a YouTube video somewhere or an Amazon Prime behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
how they actually recorded all of this stuff in the
Yeah, I
studio.
would love to know that too.
Because I know you're also like me, trying to get more, just trying to get
Context.
better at yeah, trying to get better at music production.
Yeah.
But I want to see how they actually recorded this stuff. What mics did they use? What
Hmm.
preamps did they use? What compressors did they use? What was it analog gear? Was it all mixed in the box? Like all this stuff is very interesting to me now.
That's a great point. I definitely spent a little bit of time, I think, thinking about that. I would imagine they probably used some outboard gear and some vintage stuff, just
Mm-hmm.
because I think it would have been foolish not to if you're trying
It's
to
so
like
much easier
capture.
to get that sound because
Yeah.
that's what they were using. If you're using the right tools, it's going to sound like that without even trying.
Here's the thing. Did they print to tape?
Mm.
That's what I wonder, because you're like just even using the compressors and how far would they have taken it?
Might as well take it all the way if you're going to
Yeah.
do it. You've got Amazon Prime Bezos money coming at you.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Yeah, right. Oh my God. Like imagine if they had no parameters. They're just like it costs whatever it does, and it takes as
Mm-hmm.
long because I would like to know how long this took as well.
Right.
You
How
know,
long were they in the studio?
yeah. Because like the writing alone, I'm sure Blake Mills is talented enough. He knocked a bunch of stuff out,
Mm-hmm.
but the writing alone could have been like 6 months or a year or something. You
Right.
know,
For
so
something this big, I would bet you take at least 6 months to do it right.
sure.
If
Yeah,
you have the time and the deadlines. But
and it shows if that was the case.
mm-hmm.
Anyways, that was the opening track, Aurora, and hopefully that gave everyone a little bit of an idea of the album and the experience. So, I guess going in order because they do lay out at least like three killer songs in a row. So we got this other one, "Let Me Down Easy," which this is arguably the most Fleetwood Mac themed one.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who knows Fleetwood Mac, like just check out these guitars. I mean, that's Lindsey Buckingham, but it's not a exact riff that he's used, And then like the subtle, like the Wurlitzer.
Yeah.
We're gonna take this one all the way to the chorus. I don't care. You down, Jeremy?
I'm down.
All right.
The drums sound really good to listen to.
Yeah. So in front. Just like pinging acoustic guitars are cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, and then you don't expect this.
That's the most Fleetwood sounding song right there.
Oh yeah. How great is this chorus?
Yeah.
And I love this part. I want to play the whole thing, but
It's good, man. That one probably sounds the most Fleetwood.
Yeah, 100%. And now that you say like, yes, you're right. That because when I was listening yesterday, I was like, the melodies and harmonies don't exactly sound Fleetwood Macish to me. But then just by virtue of you saying that, I was like, yeah, you're right. It because I was thinking of the interplay between Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks, but that's more like if you had Christy McVie singing against anyone else, and three of them singing at once was Lindsey, Stevie, and Christy.
Yeah.
Because Sam Claflin does not sound like Lindsey Buckingham at all. So
no.
Which is a good thing because then that like gets that out of the way, right?
Right.
Like you're not just searching to compare the two of them.
Yeah.
What else about that? Anyway, and just the transition into that chorus. So this is one of probably about 3 songs that does this. I think "Kill You to Try" is the next great example, which is the next track. But "Let Me Down Easy," it's like in terms of theory, it's probably like a sensible choice and a a reasonable choice in terms of the chord progression to go to that chorus, but you don't see it coming.
Yeah, it's unexpected.
Okay, you would agree with that, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's another.
It's modulating, right? It's going between like a
Let's
major
see.
minor thing.
So what leads into that again? So it's doesn't mean I didn't believe. So that's a weird transition. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's probably a key change. Doesn't mean I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, would you let me know? Yeah, it's for sure. It's three key changes as far as I can tell,
Uh-huh.
and not that that's common or uncommon or whatever. I mean, anything goes in good music, but I think normally what you would do, what most people would do, writing a song that you're trying to make sound like of a certain time and be
Mm-hmm.
catchy and sound like it would compete in that time,
Yeah.
is that you would stay in the same key, and then you would like, if you're doing the 1 and the 4 and the 6, then you're going to do like 6 4 1 or whatever. You're going to flip things
Yeah.
around, or you're going to use one of the same chords
Mm-hmm.
in the chorus,
Well,
and
music
then
today doesn't have any key changes at all, hardly.
yeah,
The key
yeah.
change is kind of gone from music since probably
Well,
the 90s.
yeah, but not like in pop music. There's plenty of like wacky stuff
Yeah,
nowadays
in
that
pop
is, yeah,
music. And
yeah,
Fleetwood Mac was definitely pop music
yeah.
when
But
it
like,
came out.
but yeah, okay, pop rock, let's say,
Yeah.
which I don't even know what that is now. Maybe whatever. I'm not gonna. I always bring up the Lumineers, so I'm not gonna.
Lumineers.
Yeah, I would almost put them in the pop rock category, even though
We should have a little counter every time you mention the Lumineers.
I know. It's just like I keep repeating. I'm not gonna because now I'm gonna just like be meta and like say what I
You
repeat all the
should.
time. No, I don't do
That's funny.
it. Just watch
You
everyone watch the other videos, and then you can make a game out of it. You can. I want
yeah.
people to comment and like tell me what like a dipshit I am as far as like how I keep bringing up the same examples as
Uh-huh.
if my world is this small and like I only listen to like these,
We gotta
4
have like
bands
a
or something.
one Lumineers anecdote per episode.
No, I won't do it. I won't because I've already like recycled that like 4 times. We
I
have
think keep it,
arguably
man. It's
this
awesome.
is this is full length episode 4, but it's really what like 6 in terms of the mini
Yeah.
sodes or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mentioned the same fucking bands across all 6, so I'm not
It
doing it today.
happens, man. I'm
But
gonna keep
anyway,
bringing up Tom Petty, the Black Keys, all these people I like. I'm
did
gonna
we
keep
we
doing it.
haven't brought up Tom Petty yet, I don't think.
Well, I have a Tom Petty thing that relates to the show.
Okay, please. All right, but just hang on. I just want to make sure. Oh, just if you're doing 3 key changes for
Mm-hmm.
a verse, let's say pre-chorus, if that's what that is, and
Mm-hmm.
then or like a lead in and then the chorus, that's very interesting and not typical, and maybe even not typical of that time per se. So I really appreciate that, and I think that's a very probably Blake Mills thing, where he was just like, let's do this. Because
Yeah.
again, in the next track, Kill You to Try, he for sure does that. It's a really weird chorus for where everything else is going. Anyway, Tom Petty.
All right. So
Jeremy, go.
there's one scene in this show
Mm-hmm.
where Daisy comes into the studio
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing some song. I don't even remember what the song is, but she's like, it needs to be more swampy. I read Tom Petty's autobiography, or I guess it's not, it's called Conversations with Tom Petty.
Okay.
It's basically a book long interview with Tom Petty.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he's talking about is how Stevie Nicks tried to join the Heartbreakers in
Right.
the 80s.
Yeah, because they were
After
dating, right?
Yeah, they were dating. Fleetwood Mac was over, and she just loved Tom Petty's music.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a couple songs on her. I guess they just one on her first album, but they did a couple songs together that were huge. Stop Dragging My Heart Around,
Mm-hmm.
Run to You. Anyway, she wanted to join the Heartbreakers, and she was obsessed with Tom Petty writing her a song, and he wrote her this song called Insider that ended up
Mm-hmm.
on one of his albums from the
Okay.
80s, because he wrote it and he was like, this is kind of what Stevie would do. It was more of a softer kind of ballad song. She was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want that. I do a bunch of songs like that. Write me something swampy. It needs to be
Yeah.
swampy.
Okay.
And that's like
Okay.
it's almost a direct quote.
Oh, that's
from
funny. Yeah, that's funny.
from
Oh,
Stevie
interesting.
Nicks. Yeah.
Interesting. And I wonder if that's like a book level reference, or they just did that in the
I don't
screenwriting.
know.
Yeah.
But as a person who's kind of slightly well versed in Stevie Nicks lore from the 80s anyway, as it relates to Tom Petty,
Yeah.
I kind of picked up, okay, maybe that's a thing that they knew as well.
Listen, for if anyone from the show ever watches this, like, let's talk, because
Yeah.
I would love to pick your brain. Imagine kind of a little slight departure, but not really. Imagine being Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks is like obsessed with you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like I mean, he became one of the biggest rock stars ever, but
Right.
imagine when he was about to put out that first album. I'm sure he was very cocky and everything about it, and as he should have been. But imagine just like gorgeous, like talented, world famous Stevie Nicks is like, write me a song, and I'm dating you. Like, what the fuck, That's amazing.
It's amazing for him, for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just that must have kind of blew his mind. I'm sure he played it cool, but
Yeah,
still.
I think he played it. According to his book, he played it very cool and told her that there's no girls allowed in the Heartbreakers.
Good. I don't want to say good for him, but just in the time and place, like a low key, like cool guy, cool guy move, where he's like, not revealing his true feelings. That's funny. All right, so as promised, "Kill You to Try," the third track on the album, good song. I think it's not as intriguing of a start, but then that's why the chorus just like, really lands. So check this out, everyone. This one takes a little bit longer to get into the chorus. Also, the drums here are very like maybe Tusk or Fleetwood Mac. This is a cool riff. This is cool what she does. Very Stevie Nicks once again, for sure.
I like that acoustic guitar. That's the second song in a row. It's kind of had an acoustic guitar come in.
Yeah, yep. Very subtle
rock song.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It is cool. All right, now this is, I think, what you think is the chorus. When you first hear, they're not going to yet. Okay.
Keep you waiting.
Yeah, that's right. Oh man,
the guitar riff is very Black Keys, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm bringing them up.
So it's like a key change.
What is it? Great guitar tones.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna steal all these guitars.
I know. Very well mixed. So yeah, so it's like that's a key change again. I think it is. It has to be. And it's a lift because it's like it's not really like a down song, but there's like a tension, sort of longing, whatever. Like there's this whole thing is about relationships going sour and like impending infidelity and like two people that sort of connect, but they shouldn't be, and there's like that tension, and then like he has issues with his relationship and blah blah blah. So it's like that. I feel that like kind of written into the verse there. Yeah, especially like like the Riley part. And then it goes into that. What is it I must do? It's kind of like a little bit of like a throwing your hands up. And it's just like we were talking about when we were reviewing King of One Horse Town, where it's sort of like the existential, almost sarcastic, like, or you're at your wit's end kind of thing. And so that's probably what they're saying in those lyrics, but then it feels good. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Right. There's definitely a theme throughout the show, and I think it's explicit. That is like, I know this is not the right thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Please.
That's the theme.
What?
I know it's not the right thing to do.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying to me. I was like,
no, that is
I'm waiting for it.
The theme is, I know it's not the right thing to do, but I'm going to do it anyway.
That's funny, dude. See, this is, once again, probably the problem. I'm not actually looking at you because not to break the fourth wall, folks, but oh God, that's funny. Yes, exactly. I know it's not the right thing to do. And that yes, that's it. That's exactly it. That's the whole thread for, I guess, the show for sure. Because Billy Dunn's a naughty boy, and he's kind of an asshole, like the whole entire series.
Yeah.
When you get to the end, it'll somewhat sort of like resolve itself, but he is an asshole the whole time.
Yeah.
And his wife's very tolerant, and you can understand Daisy's plight. Like she's like overstepping her bounds a little bit from the beginning, but
yeah.
she does get messed with too, like in an unfair way. So it's like in that regard, whatever you think of when anyone watches the show, it's a very good plot from an emotional like relationship point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a good arc, let's say. But anyway, yeah. So I think that song captures the two sides of that sort of feeling, or like two flavors of the same feeling, kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
if
then
you
for
ever want to
now,
write a
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
tumultuous relationship, pick Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks
Oh God, yeah,
as your
yeah,
muse,
absolutely.
because those two people have been on again, off again for like 40 years.
Yeah, and talk about. I mean, there's been, I suppose documentaries on them, but like for sure behind the music. Yeah, behind the music was a big show, and it was usually always you kind of had to have a artist or band where there was like some bad stuff that happened, and that would be the story you would tell. So this person got in a car accident, or like they went to rehab, or whatever, or there was infidelity, like between members of the band, or whatever. So Fleetwood Mac would be a great biopic if you were going to do sort of like an actual like what happened between the band members, because you don't really have to embellish much. It's like pretty messed up, and I would have never wanted to have been in that band if like knowing what happened.
No way, man.
I mean, as a person in a relationship, I think the only ones that didn't have any issues as bad as everyone else were Chrissy McVie and John McVie. But yeah, so basing it off of the Fleetwood Mac like core vibe, it nails that as well. So good point. To not sort of load up this whole conversation with too many references, I'm just going to play one more for now, and then if we feel we need to go back to anything, maybe Honeycomb we'll go back to like towards the end. But okay, so my next vote would be Regret Me, just because like it's a cool song, and this opening riff is just check this out. Regret Me. Forget trying to learn to play this. Just trying to like understand what he's doing. And the first time I hear it, I'm like, wait, what?
More acoustic guitars,
yeah,
or maybe
really effective. Say again?
Beato,
maybe, yeah. And then this, when she goes up high in harmony. 2, 3, 4. Anyway, again, the more I listen, like everything's got a little sprinkle of Fleetwood Mac in there, but yeah, but again, not necessarily this harmony interplay. Like in this song, it's just the whole sort of feel has like a Fleetwood Mac thing going on. But now here's one where like they're not really changing key. They keep repeating the "You Regret Me" thing, and then what they also do is later on they do this refrain over and over again, but then they change the melody, which they do in more than one song on this album. And we probably already listened to one where they did that. We just didn't get far enough.
Yeah.
And that I like a lot too, because it's a testament to the writing where it's like, let's not only make the song interesting unto itself, but then let's like change the character of something you've already heard 2 or 3 times. And we're going to repeat it 2 or 3 more times, but we're going to like completely change the melody, which is great because then it also changes the emotion. And then the fact that these two actors / singers are able to execute that. Oh my God. Like I've now listened to this album probably about like 10 times now, but it's a challenge every time. I'm finding something new in terms of like, what note is he or she landing on at the end of that? Cause they do so much swooping and stuff like these, like, I don't know who directed these harmonies, but oh my God,
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but it's just
good, man.
It's like ace singing,
I think one thing we could talk about here that would be interesting to us anyway, as the WoaS Waiting on a Song podcast about songwriting, is talk about some of the production choices. Like what is it about this that makes it sound old versus because it was recorded in 20, whenever, 2021, 22.
Yeah, something like that. I'm assuming, yeah. Or
So it's not just the gear, but it's also these songwriting elements where you have guitar riffs, and you've got mini guitar solos,
yeah,
and you're using an acoustic guitar, and you're building the song in a way where the the hooks of old stuff are different than the hooks now,
yes, for sure.
and the
Which I
melody
think we've
choices
probably
that you would make.
illustrated, well, with the first three, four. So yeah,
Yeah,
uh-huh.
the melody choices you're making are completely different than what modern music is doing, modern
And
pop music.
and even in some cases from what they're trying to emulate, like
Mm-hmm.
this isn't these aren't melodies that Fleetwood Mac would have necessarily written
Right.
either.
Yeah, these
Uh,
are like somewhere in between. It's like um retro instead
mhm.
of actually original kind of thing. It's a
But
throwback.
they wind up creating unique stuff in the attempts to do. And again,
Yeah.
it's it's maybe this is Blake Mills like being like a mastermind,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's also mention a couple um usual suspects that we already brought up, like the drums
Mm-hmm.
is one where you have
It's an
there.
acoustic kit instead of
Yeah,
sampled.
there you go. It's an acoustic kit. It's up close and tight, like
Mm-hmm.
um you hear on the Waiting on a Song album,
Yep.
and like you would hear in like just thousands of songs from the 70s and 60s. The guitar tone is probably reminiscent of that time, so they're probably at the very least, like, forget outboard gear and blah blah blah, they're
Yeah.
probably using what would have been used at the time. Like there's probably a lot of Strat and Les Paul and that kind of stuff, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
probably using amps that were, you know, maybe Marshall, probably a lot of
Marshall,
stuff.
Fender, Vox.
Vox, yeah, maybe some Voxes,
Yeah.
and maybe vintage
Mm-hmm.
versions of those amps.
Or it's
Um,
all plugins on a computer, and we'll
yeah, I
never know
mean,
the difference.
I would be surprised though,
I would be
because
surprised.
like I think that's also why it's resonating with us, because it's, I mean, not that I can always tell when it's a virtual
Mm-hmm.
amp versus a real one, but because this is not modern music per se, it's probably harder to fake that, get that kind of
It's
sound. Maybe
easier than
not
you
though.
think.
No. I mean, I know, because
Yeah.
we both do it, but I'm just saying, like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It seems like it just hits differently. But I may be wrong. And then what was another thing? Oh, there's probably an appropriate amount of reverb. I can't really. I haven't been listening intently enough for that, but like, there's probably an appropriate amount that matches what they would have done at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
or they're using the types of reverb they would have at the time,
Yeah. Can make a
as well
huge
as,
difference
yeah.
to the sound.
Oh, for sure. Oh, of course, it's everything. And then also, as we've already mentioned too, the vocals being back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was noticing it more this morning. I had earbuds in, and it was a little bit more kind of like buried in my ears. Like, I mean, it should be with this, but for some reason, I was noticing it more
Mm-hmm.
earlier on that, and it may have been one of the songs we already played, but the these songs where they're doing a lot of like constant harmonies for the main parts, the verses and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
not just as like flavor enhancers for the chorus or whatever, where there's more than one of Riley and more than one of Sam. They're not doing like the two mains up the middle and then like the harmonies on the side. It's almost like they're dropping the lead vocals back, and then they're
Mm-hmm.
pushing out the side ones and making a more like proximity effect closer to your ears.
Yeah.
Just like, has a very interesting effect, and it definitely colors the layering of, and probably why some of these harmonies sound so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it may be Aurora even. I think it's Aurora actually. So for anyone who's sold on this and is going to listen to this album, when you listen to Aurora, put on headphones and hear the way the spatial changes happen between Riley and Sam's voice. And
Mm-hmm.
there's multiple versions of it. It's probably like three a piece, and they come in and out, and it'd be like you kind of visualize they're both up to your ears like this for the supporting parts, and then the lead parts are like back behind your head almost. It's hard to kind of articulate, but it's
Yeah.
got an interesting sound. So that, and again, I don't know if I don't think that's necessarily a production technique from that time, but it's an interesting technique, period, and it evokes a certain kind of feeling.
Well, I think back then, and I'm sure the comments can correct me, but people were doing a lot more hard panning of stuff. So you'd hard pan a guitar,
Yeah.
hard pan a vocal,
Hmm.
and people don't do that kind of stuff as much now. Like they're much more reliant on reverbs and stereo widening
Hmm.
instead of those old school techniques where you would just hard pan something.
Yeah. And you mean like doing that in place of letting reverb sort of
Yeah, kind of fill in that
spatialize
space.
things more?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say spatialize. Gonna
That could be a word.
trademark that shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a verb. I think. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is it's like there's a weird. It's a very, from my perspective, anyway, at least in terms of today's standards, it's a very
Mhm.
weird sort of like technique. If that's in fact what they're doing, it sounds like it. Where
It sounds
again,
like it.
you're bringing forward the backing vocals or
Uh-huh.
whatever the supplemental vocals. Let's say like, supporting lead vocals,
Mm-hmm.
and then featuring them instead of the main, which is like bizarre, but
Yeah.
totally
Maybe that's a
cool.
Fleetwood Mac thing.
Could be. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they like looked into what they were trying to
Mhm.
emulate with that level of detail. Maybe they even spoke to some of the engineers and producers that worked on that stuff.
Yeah. Could
But
be.
it's just
Yeah,
again,
I
it's
was
be
go
so fascinating to get the background on this,
I
right?
know. I want to hear all the details because that
Yeah.
stuff it's so much more important than people realize
Yeah.
how your song ends up sounding.
Sure. Yeah.
All that mixing and mastering stuff really
Well,
matters.
because
It's
at
the
the end of
vibe.
the day, like when people hear it and react to it, like react to it favorably,
Mhm.
that's why.
Yeah, that's
Because
why.
you did everything you did to make it sound like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, so this is here's our pitch to any of the showrunners or people involved, particularly in the music production of this awesome
Blake
album.
Mills.
Yeah, Blake Mills especially. Please come and talk to us. Because we'd love to know more about this, and we could kind of do a companion episode to this as well.
Yeah, I wonder who engineered this stuff too.
Yeah, let's see if we have that listed. And while I'm looking for that, would this now be an appropriate time to reveal our mystery writer in terms of at least one song on here that?
I think you kept them waiting long enough, Mike.
Okay, all right, here we go. Let me just see what the engineer is listed as for at least some, or Joseph Lorg or Lorge recording mixing. He seems to be the like the de facto mixer listed here. Okay,
That's who we
so
need to talk to.
yeah. So interestingly enough, you mentioned Jackson Brown, right?
Yeah.
Okay, as a producer, yeah, we were talking about him and Blake Mills and Phoebe Bridgers, who we'll need to look her up more as well.
She's got some killer stuff, man.
Okay, awesome. I look forward to checking it out.
It's more country, kind of folk.
Okay.
Very unique sounds. Great
Yeah.
production, great voice, good songs.
4 Grammy nominations I'm seeing.
Yeah, she's really good.
Including Best New Artist. Awesome.
You need
All
to
right,
know about her.
Yeah, no, I want to know. I'm gonna know. But anyway, no, but so Phoebe Bridgers, and hopefully we can do another thing on her as well. But the initial song in the series that encourages the producer, the fictitious producer in the movie, to bring in Daisy Jones, the song in question, which is initially called Honeycomb, and then they change it to Look at Us Now, and it starts out as sort of like a love song. Daisy Jones comes in, changes it to sort of like what he's probably really thinking and feeling. It's like, no, that's not what this is about. This is about like you don't know how to communicate with your wife and blah blah blah.
Right.
So it gets renamed to Look at Us Now, and then in parentheses is Honeycomb. So that's important to note, because what happens is like you have a song that has two different sort of presentations in the series, and it starts out as like happy, and then it goes right to like what he co-writes with Daisy Jones, and it becomes another thing. So they at least had to kind of like write it in 2 different ways initially. Anyway, that song is co-written by none other than Marcus Mumford of Mumford and Sons. So I'm just going to let that sink in. And apparently that's the only track on there where that is the case. But it's cool because you wouldn't necessarily think when you listen to these songs that his kind of style of writing would be in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would reference that in the same way that we've been referencing Blake Mills, where it's like, listen to the way he writes and then listen to this album. And it's not necessarily, there's no sort of like cohesion, but it's kind of awesome because it's like he can do this and he can do what he does.
Yeah. So
same with Marcus Mumford. And that would be another interesting thing to learn about, like how did he get involved, and
right.
So, and there's a bunch of other names on here that I don't recognize that are probably also like really big, sort of players in the songwriting world. Like I know Oh yeah, Matt Sweeney, American musician, record producer, best known as guitarist of Skunk, Chavez, and supergroup Zwan. Which that's is that Billy Corgan's
I have no
project
idea.
after? I think it's Billy Corgan's group. Anyway, Matt Sweeney does like a lot of videos on YouTube, and like like he interviews like Josh Homme of Queens of the
Hmm.
Stone Age, and like Ace Frehley and a bunch of people. So he is one of the writers on Aurora. Look at that!
That's awesome.
Holy shit! That, and I think that's, oh no, and he's also on More Fun to Miss. That's the blues one where like in the show, it's Billy Dunn's song. Daisy's not singing it with like the passion and the feel that he wants, and he's like getting
Hmm.
frustrated. And then she like storms out, and he like whatever. I won't ruin it for you guys, but anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so
Something
he
happens, and you should watch it.
that's right. Sorry, he co-writes that. Matt Sweeney. So that's interesting. So quite a cast behind this album, and hopefully we've already demonstrated what's interesting about this. But to just maybe drive this point home, let's listen to a little bit of "Look at Us Now" in parentheses Honeycomb. Again, co-written by Marcus Mumford, but also Blake Mills, and let's see how we react to this. Now remember, this is initially like a love song, and then Daisy Jones comes in and changes it.
I don't know who I am, baby, baby, baby. Do you know who you are? Is it out of our hands? Tell me, tell me, tell me how we made it this far. Did we unravel a long time ago? Is there too much we
This
don't
sounds country to me,
know?
by the way, when I said
Wish
earlier
it
on
was
country.
easy, but it isn't so.
Could easily
This-
be country.
Yeah, the singing style, I mean.
Oh, we can make a good thing back.
Get the Stevie Nicks tambourine.
Yes, and the harmony's not up front, but they're like really like dry and like hard pans. I think they're dry, I don't know. Okay, all right, you get the idea, folks.
Mhm. The finger picking could also be an ode to Lindsey Buckingham. He doesn't use a
Yes,
pick.
that's right. He does not. Yeah. And yeah, I did. It's funny. I actually remember looking for that when they're cutting to his brother playing guitar solos,
Uh-huh.
and he's using a pick, and I'm like, okay, all right. So
Ah,
they're not like trying to get that literal with
right.
There's another. It's maybe the river, but there's another riff that's like super Lindsey Buckingham. It's like, and it's I think it's it's reminiscent of the riff from the song The Chain.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the one example where they almost literally do
Yeah.
almost directly copy something from Fleetwood Mac. But anyway, and it was just like I'm watching him doing that, and I'm remembering seeing live footage of a concert of Fleetwood Mac from like whatever, like 70, like middle 70s, playing that song, and
Uh-huh.
and it was when I was like maybe, I don't know, 16 or 17, and just learning about that band and
Mhm.
being like, holy shit, like listening to what he's playing, but he's not using a pick. Like, how's he doing that?
Yeah.
Which shout out to Lindsey Buckingham, or kudos to Lindsey Buckingham for,
I need a
not
pick,
that my
man.
opinion. What's that?
I need a pick. I don't know
Yeah,
how
same
you
here.
get that electric guitar tone with just your fingers.
I mean, there's a aspect of finger picking and chicken picking where
Mhm.
you can get like, in the same way when you're doing slap bass, when you're doing a slap and a pull,
Yeah, yeah.
it translates well to guitar too, where like you can get a lot of oomph out of like pulling,
Mhm.
but for articulating lead notes in like a solo type fashion, that shit's hard to do,
Oh yeah.
on an electric guitar well. And like, who else does that? There's Dire Straits was his name. Mark Knopfler does that
Yeah,
sometimes, but not
Mark Knopfler, he's the finger picking guy.
always though. Like
I don't
on
know.
like Money
Maybe
for
he's
Nothing,
more
is
like
that finger picking?
maybe he's a chicken picker hybrid
Yeah.
kind of guy.
I think he's kind of hybrid. I think he does both. But like, there's someone else who's like almost exclusively finger picking. But Lindsey Buckingham being the most famous one,
Mhm. You ever watch Chris Buck on YouTube?
Maybe.
He does Friday Fretworks.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that doesn't ring a bell.
He's in this band. anyway, he has a really unique playing style where he switches mid
Okay.
song
Yeah.
between finger
Oh,
picking
it's so
and
hard to do
pick,
that.
and he like puts his pick in this weird position in his
Hmm.
finger
Yeah.
and then plays with just these three.
Oh, okay.
But he's so smooth with it, man. He can like flick that pick out in no time at all and then put it back and
Have you
forth.
tried to do that? I've tried to do it.
I've
It's
tried to do
hard as
it
shit.
very
Yeah.
hard.
Ugh. It's like, because also
Gotta
it's like,
practice.
you don't want to have it affect your playing. You don't want to drop it.
Mm-hmm.
You could put it somewhere within reach, but then you still have to make sure like you can switch quickly enough and then get a good grip on the pick. Because like I always, even though I'm like a mostly a pick guy, finger picking oriented, but for like specific things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not like across the board. But even though I'm a pick guy, like I'm very sort of like I overthink the way I hold it sometimes. So like
Uh-huh.
if I'm not paying attention, it's all good. But then if I for any second focus on the fact of how I'm holding it, then it totally throws me off. And then like I don't hold it right. So imagine like feeling that way and then like trying to go from having it in between your knuckles and then like,
Yeah.
like, and I'm not holding it right. Like, but anyway.
I won't make a joke here. I won't make a joke.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so I think that's, kind of a good introduction without, sort of overdoing it in terms of, I think what's special about this album. I think, as we mentioned, it'd be interesting to know a lot more about what went into this, how long it took, what were maybe some of the conversations around what they were going for based on both what the book indicated, what the showrunners wanted to get out of it in terms of how it should sound and look and feel and all that stuff. A nice thread to run through the waiting on a song stuff that we pointed out to this. Teddy, producer. I think it's on. I think it's Kill You to Try. But anyway, he comes in to sort of like add a little flavor, and it's just incidentally in the scene. Like the song's already cooking, and then you see him doing his thing, and it's like, oh yeah, Teddy, you put the like the icing on the cake, or whatever. He's doing the vibraphones, do dee doo, do dee doo.
Yeah.
During the what is it? I must do, And I was like, oh, there's those vibes again where they're just kind of like,
Yeah. Just add something.
they're just sprinkling the magic dust on top of, and again, I bring that up because it's like another element where they just like with Dan Auerbach's usage of that used a sort of component that would have been characteristic of that time and place.
Right.
A musical component.
Vintage vibe.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, totally. So, this is a good discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good show. I'm gonna finish it out. I'm on episode 7 of 10.
Okay.
So I've got a few more to go. Gonna finish it out, but I've enjoyed it so far. With some critiques, it's not a perfect show. It's got like somewhere between like a 6 and a 7 as far as TV shows go.
Yeah,
but
sure.
the music is great, and I'm glad we talked about the music.
Yeah, and that and that's the thing too, is like this is an interesting sort of concept too, where can the show have killer music and like an okay sort of production and plot and writing and be great because of those two things, or where it's mediocre music but the show is amazing, or movie or whatever. Can that coexist and create one great whole? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah,
because like it's cool to have something to take away from it, where TV and film can make you feel something, or like art in general, but visual medium can make you feel something. And there's a lot of movies you watch where when it's done, it's not like you're disappointed because you almost sort of felt like you were like living that life, and then it's over, and then you like will go back to it because you get that feeling from it.
Yeah.
And I think to have like a companion piece of like the music in this case is awesome, and that in today's overly stimulated commercial bullshit world that we all consume this stuff in, for a group of people to make an album that stands on its own that well and then like evokes that feeling, at least in my case for me, is incredible. It gives me hope as far as what's on the horizon, both in terms of more examples of like shows or movies like this, and then just even music in general. I feel refreshed, or I felt refreshed hearing this, just being like, oh, this is great. Like I would never expect something of this quality to come out that like just
especially
nails
out of
it.
a Amazon Prime TV show.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is surprising.
So Well done, everyone involved in Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yeah. Come on the podcast and tell us how
please.
you made it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, that's probably a good place to end it. What do you think?
I think
Awesome.
so. I think
All
we
right.
did it.
Awesome. Video of. All right. Well, thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully you go out and enjoy some of the Daisy Jones and the Six content, and let us know what you think. Please add some thoughts of your own in the comments, and let's have a conversation about it as always. And I am Mike Ledoux, and I'm gonna stop doing that. I'm gonna stop matter.
Roll credits.
Yeah, roll credits. All right. All right, Jeremy. Yeah, good chat, and looking forward to the next conversation.
Me too, buddy.
All right, man. Did you enjoy that episode? Yes? Would you like to see and hear more? Please like and subscribe, and you'll automatically receive notifications when we publish new episodes. Thanks for watching and listening to the WoAS podcast.